Living on a homestead in the middle of nowhere, where it's quite a drought, harvesting rainwater in any format is an absolute blessing. Water is life, and it can be filtered and used for gardens and livestock, and I can drink it myself. We need water to sustain ourselves, and it's just a huge blessing to be able to harvest this much rainwater. And I realize most people live in the city and or will never harvest rainwater in their life, and so they may not understand that even though there's silt in this water, it's gold. And so the number one comment I got pretty well from my last video just showing the monsoon. I have one of these in my camper van, and I think this is the newer, nicer version. So this will go good in the old classic 77 Chevy C10. So the backup camera just slides over the rear view mirror here, and you can see it shows the front view, and then it also shows the rear view, which is important because I'm always hauling a trailer. The app is easy to access, and you can download any of the videos. So if you see an elk, you can download that video, or if there's an accident, you can just download that video. It's real easy to use. So the camera tells you what direction you're going, how fast you're going. There's all kinds of settings, so you can see both cameras at the same time or just one. So this is how simple it was to just connect a camera, and the way it's positioned, it makes it so easy to line up to the ball for the trailer here. I love my camper van, but I've been building a farm truck. This is a 77 inline 6, it's a 250. And I fully rebuilt the engine. I just barely threw it in the other day before the monsoon happened. Here's a peek inside. So I'll be able to just set it up right there in front of that mirror. If someone cuts you off or something wild happens, or more likely an elk runs by or something, you get some cool footage. When you haul a trailer as often as I do, it's really been a benefit to have it. And I appreciate Wolfbox for sponsoring this video, and in the upcoming integrated video I do like this, I'll show you that camera setup in the pickup truck. Check out the links below if you want to get one of these. I really only review stuff that I actually find useful for myself and my viewers. Many people are really concerned about the silt in the water, so I'm going to talk to you about it. I guess the most important thing to point out is that silt can easily be removed from water. In fact, in all the years that I've been harvesting water in this pond, most of that silt settles within a couple, 2 or 3 days. I moved out here to the high desert with just a van and a trailer, and there's just been so many things to do. I run an entire homestead, and there's always so many things to do. And the things that are at the top of the list are things like, completing the cabin, building my farm truck, things that I solve problems that need to be solved. And I know that I could have put a silt filter in for this pond year one, but it just hasn't been that important. However, it is important, and the swells around the property that lead the water to the pond, all I have to do to solve this problem is basically build like a septic system, but for silt. And so what would happen is all the water that rushes down the way that collects a little bit of silt, it can go through this kind of a septic system and then dump into the pond virtually clean. So all of this water that runs down the swells around my homestead to the pond, all the way from the front gate, through the second gate, down past the reservoir, past the groundwater recharge pit, all the way out to the pond, all of that water can quite simply be filtered. But like I say, I've been harvesting this water for years, and it's just never been a problem. It's always cleaned up quite well. It turns out that this pond will stay full all the way through to the next monsoon, at least a few thousand gallons. And I've climbed down in there. Matter of fact, I dried the pond up because I used it to make 20 footings for the cabin this time. And I just climbed down there, and it took me 20 or 30 minutes to clean the silt out of the bottom. And so it just wasn't a real big deal. But I can prevent that going forward, and I think that's a good idea. And it just won't be very difficult to do. So with that out of the way, the plan going forward is to build a bridge from the pergola there. That'll be an outdoor kitchen. And it connects to the deck that surrounds the cabin. So you can walk out to the pergola, and I'm gonna make a bridge that goes directly across the pond to this other side here. I'm gonna put in a couple large posts on this side and stretch a sunshade cloth across the top. So with the shade cloth in place, and do you see the bog filter? That's a 4,500 gallon an hour pump. So plenty for this pond. With the shade cloth and that bog filter in place, there should never be algae. I can start to plant some plants around the edges that'll help clear it out and put some fish in there. And we're just gonna have a thriving pond that so far, as long as I don't drain it to make the footings for the cabin again, it stays in a pretty good cycle where it never goes below a couple thousand gallons. And in fact, all those times that it did go down to a couple thousand gallons, I was watering livestock and gardens and things like that. I don't know if you've ever been sitting in the high desert where it's just an absolute drought and it's super, super dry. And to see a pond like this is absolutely magnificent. I suppose it might be human nature to look for the negative side of things, but I prefer to look at the positive side of things. And either way, the pond really is what it really is, whether you frame it as a negative thing or a positive thing. And for me, I absolutely love my pond. It's yielded huge rewards to my homestead. It helps with the biodiversity. I get thousands of frogs in here. That brings more birds, even blue herrings. And soon fish. I can move some fish over here now that I've got this huge pump in here. And I expect it to just continue to get better and better, just like everything else on my frugal homestead. If you're interested in learning more about my homestead, I have a free ultimate guide to off-grid living on my website. And you can subscribe. I've got hundreds of videos. I think I'm going to start spending more time creating blogs on my website, so you can go read through those and find out information if you want to. And I'll catch you guys on my next video.